Yeah, I fucked up massively. It's insane. But like, there's no one to blame but myself, honestly. So like, I missed not just last week, but the week before that week's podcast. And it's like, where can I find the time to record like 3 podcasts now? And I have to upload, I don't have to, but I have to upload them in the span of 2 days. So I can like, oh crap, I need to make sure it fits, like, I don't know, which number is it, by the way? I did not check at all. I'm like, I should start recording for this. And I just did it. So I was like, professional. Let me just check. Yeah, it should be 28, 29, and 30. Like, wow, it's already been 30 weeks, hasn't it? Wow, time just flies, doesn't it? Anyway, I know what I want to talk about. I'm not going to fucking stuff it around because, like, at the beginning for this podcast, I realized, the audio fucking sucks massively. They're not bad. They're listenable, manageable. I think it's manageable. I don't know. That's what I think. And it's such a shame because some of the beginning ones, I talk about games that I really like and I want to redo them because, like, the audio sucks. And there's, like, I re-listen to them because of, like, why did I not mention this? I mentioned this, but not this. But then I just, like, mentioned something completely unrelated to the game. And I'm like, no, I should stop. So I want to redo some of them. So this is what this is going to be about. It's going to be Final Fantasy 15 because I fucking love that game so much. And I guess I want to start from the beginning, and that's playing through Persona 5. It's like, I mentioned this before. I made 2 separate podcasts about them, and that's like, I am not a really big fan of Persona, and I am talking Persona 5, and I'm talking about the vanilla version of Persona 5, not Royal. I did the first Palace of Royal. I dropped the game because time is not a thing for me anymore. I think I'm going to do it because I do have a week off from the Navy, so I'm taking my time. But I've been replaying through Kingdom Hearts and Final Mix, but that's not the point here. So maybe I'll do a little bit of Persona 5 Royal, but we'll see. But anyway, after playing through Persona 5, I got really miffed. Because for me, Persona 5 felt really incomplete, unsatisfying at all as a JRPG as a whole. Everything, like Persona 5 for me, it's like, other than the visual aspect, Persona starts feeling the same. Like, story-wise, it hits the same beat as past games. It's like, it's bad. Some characters just remind me of past characters, and sometimes past characters were handled so much better. Like, you have the lover kind of, which also is the female. You always have the support character, who's always a female. You have the mascot character. For me, it's like, I want something new. And Final Fantasy 15 looked like that. Anyway, I want to do like a time last, like, I have my PS4 open, and the only way I can know the time because, like, when you do trophies, you like, it saves the time. So I know that much. So I've beaten Persona 5 at, holy crap, time. Oh god, that was 2 years ago. Crap, Persona 5 is old, isn't it? God, I remember waiting so long for that game. It's insane. Anyway, I beat Persona 5 2018, like the beginning of there. And when did I play through Final Fantasy 15? Oh my god, a year later. But anyway, and it took a while for me to realize that I did not like Persona 5. I only realized this once I beat through Final Fantasy 15 that I did not like Persona 5. And the reason, and it just made me realize, okay, so Final Fantasy 15, like, you hear a lot about it. It's supposed to be Final Fantasy Versus 13, but then something about development too long. Tetsuya Nomura was focusing on other project at that time as well, so it was not feasible for him to make Kingdom Hearts 3 and Versus 13 at the same time. And a lot of stuff changes, like Versus 13 to 15, all that fiasco. And I was not really into it because, like, I am not into Final Fantasy. Like, the first Final Fantasy game for me was at 15. I do want to get into the other series. Like, 7 seems cool. 9's the best one, apparently. I don't know who says that, but, like, anyway, they all seem cool. Who's Quall again? So I wanted to get into it. And I thought, like, if I wanted to, I should get 15. But then the game came out. And then it's like, it's a horror story, apparently, development. Like, I don't think people say it was bad, but it's like incomplete there and there. You just hear horror stories about it. And I was like, okay, I'm not that invested in it. I should not bother with it. And then I left it for a long time until, like, one Christmas. My mom's like, okay, it's Christmas. You know what to do. And she, like, gives me a piece of paper, write down 5 video games. And she'll pick them up. And I'm like, okay, what should I write? I don't remember what I wrote. I remember I wrote Final Fantasy 15 because, like, it's a Christmas present. I'm not wasting money on it. So it's like, I'm okay if the game turns out to be bad or something. And I wrote Bloodborne as well on that list. And I think Dark Souls 1. I don't remember. So I did that. And then Christmas came around and like, hey, she got like most of the games somehow. It's like, I don't know how. And it was funny because most of the games were like $20 anyway. She got me Bloodborne. Okay, Santa. I don't know what to say this. She got me Bloodborne, and then she gave me Final Fantasy Type 0. I don't know how that happened. But then I realized, oh, there's like a little code that says like, oh, free demo of Final Fantasy 15. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I remember that Christmas I started playing through Type 0 like on my first Final Fantasy game. I did the prologue, like the beginning part where the guy, okay, spoiler alerts, the guy dies with the Choco that made me sad and I cried on Christmas night. So I'm gonna stop playing, and then I played through Bloodborne, and then I hated Bloodborne, but that's another podcast. So and I saw like, oh, here's the code for Final Fantasy 15, even though it's not the game I wanted. I'm not gonna say that to my mom, but like still, I do want to play through Type 0 though. That I'm not gonna say. I haven't want to say that, but I haven't touched it. Anyway, then I saw the code that says like, oh, password is invalid until the 2017 or 2018, and I forgot. So I thought like, okay, the code is invalid anyway. But turns out even if the code says it's invalid, you can actually still use it because I used it last year and it worked perfectly. And I'm like, deceptive marketing. That's nice. It was a lie. And it's weird when you play through the full game and then you play through the demo. There's a lot that changed it. So I found that really fun. But anyway. So for the longest time, it's like, okay, I'm not going to play 15 until one summer, which is July 2019, where I got paid for my job. And I'm like, I'm going to buy some video games. And I bought 3. I mentioned that in the original podcast number 2. This is what, 28 or 29? I forget. Anyway, I bought like 3 games. Sekiro, because like I like From Software games. I also bought Fire Emblem 3 Houses because I heard so much good crap about it. And I really like the music. I do buy video games just for the music, by the way. And then on my game, I was just looking around in my public area, what do you call it? My public game store. And then I saw Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition, and I'm like, I heard horror stories. What is Royal Edition? What is Insomnia full version? Anyway, I'm gonna buy it, so I bought it. And then I'm like, okay, I have 3 games, we're just gonna play. I put 15 first, and that was like, which came all with everything, I think, with the DLC and everything, so I bought it. Put it in here. That's what July 2019. It had like 100 gigabyte update plus with all the DLC, and I'm like, my internet fucking sucks. This is gonna take ages, and it did take ages. When I bought the game on the 29th of July, I started playing it on the 2nd of August. It took a while. I was like, I did it, and then I did upload manage, even though I had to delete some stuff, so that was not but I did not regret deleting Nier Automata though. I gave it that much. Nier Automata is another story entirely as well, by the way. But again, that's another podcast for another day. I like the game better than Persona 5. I do not like Persona 5. But then I matched it out and I played it, and the beginning part is so weird because like the combat, like gameplay wise, is not a traditional JRPG. Can you even call it a JRPG? After Persona 5, actually, I thought I lost touch with JRPGs. But then this year, I started playing Tokyo Mirage Session, and that's a JRPG. And I'm like, oh wait, no, Persona 5 just sucks. Anyway, this is supposed to be me complimenting Final Fantasy 15, not talking shit about Persona 5 again, but like, force of habit, you know? Anyway, I played through it, and I love it. Like, everything about Final Fantasy 15 was so refreshing and unique. And it felt like it took risks with the story and character. It feels like 15 compared to Persona 5. Final Fantasy will change things up because it's been on the market for so long. I think Square Enix as a whole understands that you can't do the same thing because it sort of loses touch. And Persona 5 for me, Atlas doesn't seem to get that still. And don't get me started on the DLC package with Atlas as well. And the soundtrack as well. Again, that's another topic. But Square Enix seems to understand that very well. Like, with the new game, you should not do the same thing. You should always try something new, and 15 feels like that. And I guess the best part of the game definitely is the 4 groups. Gladiolus, Ignis, Prompto, and Noctis. All of them are amazing characters. They're so fun to interact. They're everything. And the thing about the game's story as well with the characters, that also goes to a lot of the other characters. Luna Freya, Arden, Aranea, even the bad guys, Ian Delun, the guy from Niflheim, I keep forgetting his name, Elias. It was like a weird name, but like, also I think the game has a subtle text about Japanese and the westernization of Japan, but I don't know, it's too smart for me, so I'm not gonna fucking bother thinking about it. They have, like, the game story, it's not like in Persona 5 where it has to spell everything out to you, because there's this one scene of Persona 5 that I absolutely despise because it treats the character as, it treats the player like a fucking dumbass. And that's what it's like, where it was Makoto, she's like, her sister told her useless, and then Ann called her useless, and we had a flashback of Makoto's sister calling her useless, which happened only 5 minutes ago. For me, it's just like, okay, the characters is incompetent, they don't remember that, so we need to show them. Well, Final Fantasy 15, okay, it does that, it does have flashback moments as well, but like, most of the time it doesn't. And it really shines, like, they show the character's personality, like, you just need to know they're friends, you don't need to see them how they became friends to understand that, which Persona 5 just loves to do. Like, should we show how Makoto is affected by her sister's words? No, we just need them to see it, to hear it, and everything. We just need to tell them that that's what's happening. Well, Final Fantasy 15 does not do that, and the best example of that is Noctis and Lunafreya's relationship, which in my opinion is one of the most underrated relationships in gaming as a whole, because people are like, oh, we want to see Noctis and Lunafreya acting like a couple to see them there as lovers, but the thing is, the game just tells you that they're lovers, and their actions and feelings towards each other perfectly says that. And for me, like, trust me, I would sell my left kidney just to have like a 5-minute cutscene of them talking and acting all cutesy. I will do it. But after, okay, spoiler alerts for the entirety of Final Fantasy 15, by the way, even though I over-spoiled a lot of other crap. And the thing, once Lunafreya dies, before that, every time Noctis or her, she gets the lover's notebook, I mentioned this in the original, by the way, is that you can see their face literally light up, knowing like, oh my god, they're alive, thank god for that. And that's like, yep, that's their love, that's their love, it shows right here. And once Lunafreya dies, Noctis is so impacted by her death, it really almost restored his friendship with the other guys as well. And that shows like, yep, that's how much she means for him. And then before that, you have Lunafreya making the contracts with the gods so so Noctis can fulfill the contract. It physically aids her, it ails her, it literally kills her, to the point where she asks her brother to give him the ring. Also, Ravis is also a really good character, by the way. Regis as well, like, everything about the character is so refreshing. The fact that, anyway, Lunafreya loves Noctis, and Noctis loves Lunafreya. I know ship that one of the three, there's only like 3 heterosexual straight ships that I fucking support. The other ones fucking suck. Joker and Makoto being one of them, but still, that I do not support because it's bad. And that's Lunafreya and Noctis. Kairi and Sora, I'm sorry, Rico fucking sucks. And then the guy from Final Fantasy Crisis Core and Aerith, I like them, even though I never played the game. I know the story somehow. Fucking depressing, man. And it's like, and not just that, Promptum and Noctis' relationship is also really good. That scene at the pit stop, I keep forgetting because every time I go to that pit stop, the cutscene plays and I start crying. It's like so good. The game's character and like the game is it's made in chapters. I don't know. I just wanted to mention that, by the way. And like the story as a whole is fucking depressing. And the fact that it's another. Even the gods as well, Bahamut, Leviathan, they each have their personality, and the fact that they feel like gods, like people worship as well, is like, that's such a weird thing, because in so many others JRPGs, they're like, we need to go against the gods because they're dicks, and like, but this game, they're like, yep, okay, gods are better than us because they can literally kill us in a single flash. And another thing people seem to forget about this story is like, why don't the gods just take care of this Dark Scourge? But the thing, the Scourge is so much stronger than them that they need to make someone who's way stronger than the gods, which is what happens to Noctis. And the game spells it out. And the fact that Noctis had to die as well, like, oh, that just makes me cry. And the main theme song for the game, Sobness and Stand By Me, like vocal track, I don't know, which is a cover done by the Florence and the Machine. I don't know where the original is from, by the way. Didn't even know it was a cover until later on, every time I hear Stand By Me, I will start crying for no apparent reason. It happened so many times. Like, it happened yesterday, where I was just watching TV with my parents and my sister, and then the song's like, oh, let's do a cover song, and they're like, oh, let's just Stand By Me. She starts singing it. I started crying. It's like, so good. It happened at the gym as well. It happened like one of the guys at the base started singing it. I started crying. It's like, so emotional. I'm getting teary-eyed as well. And that's the story for the character. It's just so refreshing and so new. Everything about Final Fantasy, even though it was a game that was released in 2016, I think, it just feels fresh. And honestly, another thing that weirds me out, because like I mentioned that Persona 5 does have really good visuals and art style, but I was never blown away by them. That weirds me out. Well, Final Fantasy 15 goes for that realistic. I just burped. The realistic graphic wise, in my opinion, when you do that for video games, it never lasts well. Like, it's just gonna look outdated after a couple of years. But I was more impressed visual-wise by Final Fantasy 15 for the most part, and it's weird. And I always love the fact, like, oh, when we separate the main areas, what theme should we give them? Like we have the dry area, we have the bustling city area, Lestallum, and then we have the beach side from Galdin, Quay, and I'm like, and then they're like, okay, let's put some wetlands in there, and I'm like, what? Like, so many other JRPG would just have the generic mountain, city, and bank, I think. And it's like, yeah, that's it. But then 15 is like wetlands, and I think Breath of the Wild also put wetlands as well. It's like, for me, it's like, that's like not the best way you can make them visually. But then you have those giant ass sea creatures at the lake. That's like fucking cool. And another thing is the game's bosses. Like, gameplay wise, the game is weird. Like, it's real time, and then like, only took me until my 5th playthrough I realized if you move the left stick around, you can make different attacks. And I'm like, yep, I feel dumb. Anyway, with the bosses, there's so many of them. Like, you have Loki as well, which in my opinion, when it comes to story-wise, you can tell that he was like, oh, forgotten completely. Like, you see him in the, after Isomnia the stories, and you go to the wetlands for the first time. You have to fight him with Core. And then you see him again during the optional side quest to get the flying car. And then that's it. I think he's in the fucking Assassin's Creed festival thing, but those festivals has been discontinued along with the Chocobo Wong and the Mogul one. It made me sad, and I want to experience them, but I guess I can never do that again. Anyway, you have them. Also, you have Aranea, which is an extremely fun fight as well. I never realized that when you jump up in the air with her and there's like the sequence and then NOCTIS just smashes her face in the ground. That's just fucking cool. And then you have the best fucking like music as well. I'm gonna mention this later. But then you have the Titan fight with the Archean, or like Titan fight, whatever, Titan, Archean, whatever. There's so many names for the gods. And in my opinion, that was the moment I'm like, fuck, this is so awesome because you're fighting a god. And it feels like a god. And like the music, Apocalypse, a NOCTIS is like, it's so good, everything about it. And then you have, afterwards, we're like, oh god, they're gonna burn to them. And then you have Arden coming out of nowhere. But anyway, back to that Archean fight, it was just so cool. And then when you have him as a summon, like, the thing is, oh, it's gonna be watered down. And then you have this awesome ass cutscene with him racing the ground when you just do summon him. Like, summoning in this game is weird because it's always random, and then you for some reason get the one more than the other, and that gets annoying fast. But like, when you do have the other gods other than him and Ramu, it's just so cool. And then you do Ramos, like, it's a weird fetch quest. You go there and there, but like I do, and it's cool, I guess, because the area is plunged into thunderstorm. I was like, Titan and the Leviathan fight, they're just so cool thanks to the music. And I'll get to the music, don't worry, but their fights are really well. Another fight I really like was Ravus, when he becomes Demonify. I do want to say it's bad because he has so much defense and so much HP. There's like, yeah, I'm fighting a fucking tank. But then I think how sad it is, and then it makes me sad, and I'm like, it's a good fight. And then you have the final boss with Arden. Actually, no, you also had the Cerberus fight, which was added in the World Edition. I have no idea what to mention it, because if you do all the side quests in Insomnia before fighting Sturbridge, you actually get Core. And I thought Core died after the fight, and I was so sad, but then after the fight you get the fucking amazing cutscene with the gods fighting against the walls. That was amazing. But then you have Arden as the final boss. No, and then you go inside Insomnia. There's so much other bosses in this game where you have to fight the old ones of yore. It's cool, especially the music, but it's like, I wish the game made it more clear that you're supposed to fight them as the other characters, because in the original version, like when the game was first released, you could only play as NOCTIS, but later on they added the updates to play as the other characters. I wish the game made that abundantly clear, because I just started fighting like the first one with the club guy. I was fighting it with NOCTIS and I'm like, what the fuck, I feel like I'm doing no damage, but the minute I changed into, but once it did manage to deplete its HP, the game's like, okay, I'm forcing you to play as Gladiolus, and I'm like, oh, so that's how it goes. And then once you do that, it's so much better. Then you have to check, which you can tell that she's based on the Japanese mythology of Himiko, because she's like one of the few women that became the queen of insomnia, and then she locks herself up and only does it from the inside, not outside. No one sees her praise and all that stuff. Like, I can see the mythology in that one. Which I think you're supposed to fight with Prompto. And then you have Somnus. You fight Somnus. That was cool, because especially the music is so good. But then like you can play him with either Nick, Ignis. No, yeah, you're supposed to fight him with Ignis, and that's just fucking cool. And then you fight Arden with Magna Insomnia playing it. So intense. You're flying across, and then you like. And then you have to choose a photo before that. It's like, so good. Arden as the antagonist as well is so good, but like, I think people seem to forget the fact that he's technically is evil, because he absorbs so much of the demon scourge inside him. So like, yeah. And then you have the crystal portraying it, because like, and people for some reason forget the fact that the crystal is a separate entity than the gods. So that's something. But Arden is a great fucking antagonist. Even though it does follow in the cliche that, oh, he's actually related to NOCTIS, but hey, yo, immortality does wonders to the skin. And also Ifrit, I can't believe I forgot about Ifrit. His relationship with Shiva, it's like Shiva as well, Gentiana. You can see the reason why she's so fond of Luna Freya is the fact that she sees her past relationship with her and NOCTIS, which it's a detail the game does never state, but you can clearly see when she interacts with Luna Freya and all that crap, and why she chooses to do it. And Shiva, like, I like her design. First of all, I like how it's like modernization of a kimono. Not a kimono, yukata. I don't know. I think kimono is the right way of saying it. But like, you can tell the Japanese inspiration of it. And I like the design overall. Not Shiva's design though. I think she looks awfully weird. Like, what's up with your fucking weird ass hair? And like her relationship with it, for like when you summon her for the final part of Ifrit's fight, and then it's like, oh, it's so sad. And then she gives him a little kiss before he dies in the eyes. It's like, oh, Ifrit himself, like, poor guy, he wants to kill humanity, and like he dies. That's what happens. Another thing that fucking screws me over with the story is definitely the regalia. I don't know why I cried for a car, but I did. Once it breaks down when you reach Niflheim for the first time, I cried. I don't know why. It was sad. Another thing I like about Niflheim, exploration in this game is really good in my opinion. Even the fucking optional dungeons, like the sewers of insomnia, and then you have the Pitus. Is that how you pronounce it? Pitus dungeon, the one where it's like only puzzle based. I really love it because of the music. At the beginning, it plays like the generic dungeon theme, not what lies within. The other ones I do not like at all. But it plays the one I didn't like at all. But then after a certain point, it changes, and then it went to this quiet. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. I'm not really good with names. The minute it changes music, I got chills, man. I like Pitos because like it's really well designed in my opinion. It's fucking hard as balls because like it's puzzles, and then sometimes the game does not really support platforming, but that dungeon does that a lot. But I still think it's really well designed. and the Royal Arms as well, their dungeons, they're really fun when they do have it. And when you have optional party members like Core, Arenea especially, like they have their own special attacks as well. And I like the interactions they get with the other characters as well. Even Iris as well. Like Iris is a weird character, by the way. I do not understand her point, but like, hey, I like her design. It's adorable. And her relationship with Gladiolas is actually quite cool. It's like, hey, it's brother and sister dynamic. But I do find it weird, like story-wise, there is some points where like, yo, Gladios, and Iris' father fucking dies, and they do not mention it once, like the war. In Insomnia, the movie Kingslave, I mentioned this in the original one, I am not a big fan of Nyx. As a protagonist, for me, felt bad and bland, like... Ignis felt like Nyx, feels so generic. And the whole movie, the only good thing about the movie was definitely Regis. But I think his character was also shown really well in the game. So he's like, And whenever his character felt like a plastic bag. And the only another good thing about the movie is the visuals. I wish the movie focused more on the immigration aspect, like how the people who are refugees, like their country, like how they feel like the homeland being taken away from them instead of Insomnia. But like the movie just mentions it once and that's it, and I feel that's off. I'm sorry I'm making too much other noises, by the way. I'm moving a lot of crap around. And also you have the DLC as well, like the first one, episode Gladius, while it is the weakest out of the three, it does not mean it's bad. And like I feel like the boss with the what's his name, Gilgamesh was cool, and like the visual aspect, like all the visual wise, the game looks phenomenal. Even in the DLC, it's fun, but it's weird to me out how the episode Ignis for some reason does not have special art. It's just the only one with fucking 3D models. I found that weird. But anyway, episode Gladiolas, it was good because you get topless Gladiolas afterwards, and that's great. And it wasn't sad, so that's something to look about it. It was just cool. It's just Gladiolas being an absolute hot piece of ass, looking cool as ever. And then you have episode Prompto, which is just depressing, seeing Prompto going through so much. It's like, that's sad. But then another good thing about episode Prompto though, it also shows character for Arenea, which completely caught me off guard. Like, I wonder who's gonna come and save the day. Oh, hey, Arenea, what's up? And it's cool, and I like the resolution Prompto gets in the end as well. And the main theme, Home Sweet Home, was great. And then I guess there is the multiplayer expansions, Comrade. I tried it a little bit, but I'm not really a big fan of multiplayer games. Like, you can play it by yourself, but like, it's not that fun. But the main theme, Choosing Hope, great song, I love it. But then you get the best, okay, it's not the best DLC, I still want it. It's still one of the best ones. Episode Ignis is great. It's just like, oh, you can see what happens after Noctis passed out after fighting the Leviathan, and you have Ignis, and it's like, oh, you fight Ravens, and then you see how Ignis got blind actually, and that was so cool, and then it made me pissed off because like, during the trailer for episode Ignis released by Square Enix, it fucking spoils the fact that he wears the ring, and I'm like, why will you spoil that? It's one of the... That's so dumb. And the last episode, the one that was supposed to be for the future side, I forget, I think it's called the future side, which I'm glad it got cancelled because the light novel was so disappointing, because like, what I loved about 15 was the fact that it was not another cliche story of going against the god. No, it was the fact that they treated gods, and that was their fate, and they accepted it, and I love how Noctis just takes it with pride and all that stuff. But the dawn of the future fucking takes that away, like, okay. But episode Arden as a whole, well, the last DLC, I think it was fucking great. Everything about it, like the music. Luda's Juice, Condition to Hate was a great track, and Somnus's fight theme was great, and Regis, fighting Regis when he was in his younger states was great. And like I said, Arden is a great character as well. And then you get like the Niflheim Emperor and his younger state, and he looks like Ignis, and why did I get the names confused? Prompto, that was a weird whiplash. We also have the Royal Pack, and one thing I liked about the Royal Pack was meeting Bismarck like that sea creature for the first time. I thought that was cool and fun. And then the last thing I want to mention, I was on Going Through Heaven. Now that's okay because like it was definitely the music. It's the first time I even bought a soundtrack for a game because I just saw it on my fucking local game store website and I'm like, I'm buying it. And I bought it and it was great. Even though I do not have a CD player and I don't use it when I drive a car. And then I wanted to get the volume 2 version of the soundtrack, which I got this year and I'm so happy. It's so slick and everything. It's so cool. Like, and the game main theme, Softness, is a great track as well. And I'm gonna go through some of the track listing to mention my favorite ones because I can do it. Let me just get a paper that says them all. Like I mentioned, like Hammerhead has a pretty good. Also, the game soundtrack is quite dynamic, and like not near okay, like the same level as Nier Automata. No. Like a baby version, I would say. Like you go to one part and then the part changes. Like in Hammerhead, where you have like the soft rock version, and then you go inside the cafe or the engine part. No, the cafe. No, the pit stop, the supermarket. That one where you have this rock version. It was great. Another theme is Wanderlust. It's a great theme. But it sucks because when you walk around Eos and then you have like enemies above us and I'm like, oh, does not get annoying at all. But it does, it's sad saying it. But the game, there's so many fight themes for the game. Like I mentioned Apocalypse Noctis. I love how dynamic it is and how it fits the music and how it ends. The way you defeat the Titan or the Leviathan. There's two different versions, Apocalypse Noctis and Apocalypse Aquarius. And then you have other version like the one features in episode Ignis. Apocalypse Magnatus, Magnatus. I don't know how to speak Latin, by the way. But then you have the version Advent of the Apocalypse, or Advent of the Apocalypse. I don't know. It's a great track. But the game first fight theme you ever listen to, Standing Your Ground. It's so much better than Last Surprise. I hate Last Surprise, by the way. Another theme that really got to me was Safe Haven. It's just like it's a nice little guitar song. And another one, like the one a lot of people talk about is Vasti Fantastica. Because like if you hear it like when you go to a new area or driving the boat for the first time, it's just a great fucking track. Another track I love and I realize not a lot of games do that anymore is Crystalline Chill. Like we're going to the menu and having another song plays. Like not a lot of games do that, I realize. And I'm glad Final Fantasy 15 does that, but it does ruin the moment sometimes when you do go there. And then it cuts the other song, like when Wanderlust plays, I'm like, I'm gonna Wanderlust plays. I have to stand still for a second just to appreciate the music because I'm scared I'm gonna run into an enemy. And then you have Encroaching Fear play. The fishing theme as well, fishing in 15 is absolutely a blast as well. And in my opinion, every game needs a fucking fishing minigame. Real Rumble, I love the pun by the way, it's great. But the theme that plays when you, the fight theme that changes when you go to the next area the fight is on. It's great. I like it. Nvidia is also a good fight theme. I like how I don't know how much time like the song ends in a specific way. It has an ending, which most boss themes don't have actually. But I think you only hear it once in the game, and that's with Loki. Like I know it plays for Aranea, but the fight ends abruptly because Aranea's like, I have no work overtime, and then she leaves. Another thing I love is Nox Divinia. That plays when you're summoned. Is like you can feel how strong the god is for this theme. You also have the Omnis Lacrima, which was shown in the earlier days when it was only known as Versus 13. It's a great track, and it only plays for like really big enemies, and it's cool. And like Luna Freya's theme is also pretty good as well. I fucking clipped, didn't it? But like I like Luna Freya's theme as well. As a whole, like the soundtrack is one of my favorite in video game, better than Final Persona 5, by the way. I'm not saying Persona 5 has a weak soundtrack, it's just bad. That's my fucking hot take. I do want to buy Royals, like I like the Royal soundtrack so far. Takeover is a great song, but Final Fantasy 15 has better soundtrack. Another thing I love about the DLC episodes is that the feature guest composer, like for episode Gladiolas, you have Keiichi Okabe, which I loved his work in Nier Automata. The main theme he did was like the Battle on the Big Bridge and Shield of the King. They're just really great tracks. And the Trial of the yeah, that's what you call it. The one done by, I think, Tetsuya Shibata, I think. Tetsuya Shibata is like an unsung hero of the game's soundtrack, by the way. Or was it Yusuke Chitaka? I don't know their names, by the way. For episode Prompto, which I got wrong, by the way, in the original podcast. I said someone else's name. I think it was her. It was Yoshino Aoki, which I do love her tracks. She did it in the main game as well. I like her tracks, don't get me wrong. But for episode Prompto, it's actually Nooshi Mizuta. But I think episode Prompto had 2 guest DLC. I'm not sure. But anyway, like I mentioned, theme Home Sweet Home is great. Also, The Fire Within is also a great track. But then the other track, like Face the Music and Orbility and Stability, I like how it, like, you can tell the character based on the soundtrack, by the way. Like, of course Prompton will listen to dubstep. Of course Gladiolas will hear to some rock and roll. And of course Ignis will hear something with violin. Anyway, Ignis DLC was Yasunori Mitsuda, which I love his work in Kid Icarus Uprising, by the way. His theme, and then you have Ashes to Ash. They're just really, really good themes, not gonna lie. Oh yeah, and for Comrade, it was the original Nobuyo Uematsu. I don't know much of his work. I know he's famous. I don't like One Winged Angel, but other than that, and Choosing Hope, that's only the 2 of his music I've ever heard, actually. And the World Edition also features some new music, like As It Fordern. I don't know how to speak German, by the way. It's a good track. And then you have Moonlit Melodies, which makes me cry so fucking hard. I also want to get the piano collection, but I think like stepping it. But like, I love 15 music so much. And the piano collection has really good arrangement of some of the tracks, by the way. Like, have you heard the version of Voste Fantastica piano version? Fucking great. As a whole, Final Fantasy 15 was such a unique, fresh take of video game and story and everything about it. But like, I won't blame anyone who doesn't like the game, especially if the first play when it was released. I can understand why not a lot of people like it, but like nowadays, though, if you want to get into 15, I think it's perfect. Especially the story. Oh my god. I don't know where I mentioned. I don't think I mentioned in the original podcast, but I remember. Also, this year last year, I managed to platinum Final Fantasy 15. Like, only the base game. I did not bother with any of the DLC, but when I platinumed it, I fucking cried a bit as well. I cried a lot, but still. Oh, then I want to say, yeah, I think I mentioned it like in one podcast, but like, I only started appreciating video games music after Danganronpa V3. Like V3, Danganronpa as well. I want to talk about that one day, but I think I should do it with a guest. Like, I know BD Brazier likes that game, so like, yeah, we can do that. But after Danganronpa V3, I get more appreciation for storytelling in video games, because V3, if you don't know, one of the ending points is like, even if it's fiction, it's still real for us. And I took that message to heart, so I cry at pretty much anything. I'm gonna talk about Kingdom Hearts again one day, so watch out for that. Anyway, this is the 2-week late podcast. I have to record. I don't have to. I can just give up here and there, but I want to record, and I'm in the mood to record, so I'm gonna go out and end this here, because I think 40 minutes is a good ass time. All I'm gonna say is, it's like, fucking play Final Fantasy 15. It's better than Persona 5.